The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hi, this is Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 151.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, a.k.a. that wizard/crazy old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Please be sure to share this podcast on Twitter or Facebook. Let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review anywhere you can. We appreciate it. Now, I just did it myself. I'm going to need all of us to take a deep breath, control ourselves, calm down a little bit. Is everyone sitting down? Because Mandalorian is back. Mandalorian is back. Yeah, we're all going.
There was much
crazy.
rejoicing.
Well, and that's right. That's this long. It's long anticipated. We'll get into some timing breakdown here too. I want to get a little bit of everybody's kind of background with Mandalorian here in just a sec, but I think almost everybody's favorite Star Wars streaming series has officially come with Mandalorian Season 3, and we're not going to waste another moment before diving right into it to break it all down. So joining me tonight, we take a deep dive into Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, The Apostate. We have with us Josh Beeghley. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. Glad to have you. And we also have Patrick Mason is with us. Pat, welcome.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, Father Geoff Horton. Father, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you guys. Does anybody have a Ham Solo segment thing to report? If not, I don't, so we can just jump in, but I always like to ask.
I do not. I thought I saw something get popped up in the Discord though.
Did you? I missed that.
Somewhere I thought I saw one get brought up.
Oh yeah. Wasn't there somebody reported a was it a This Is the Way like beer or something like that? Was that?
It's something similar.
Yeah, where was that?
It still counts.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, who? That was not too far back. I thought I had that. I'm not seeing it now. Shoot.
Oh, Ham Solo. Share a food/beverage item related to Star Wars that I look forward to having with the Mandalorian.
Was Catherine? I forget where that was. I'm not seeing it in the thread.
This Is the Way Imperial Stout.
Yes, that was it. Well, I have not seen that personally. I have to get my hands on that when I get a chance. So, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't prepare for that. So whoever reported that, keep us posted if you see any more stuff out there. But this is exciting, guys. And again, we're going to get into. I'll give a general plot breakdown and everything. But before we do that, I was really excited. I'll kick it off to you guys just by mentioning as far as backstory. I had asked Dom, and I didn't have a chance to go back and actually listen to it, unfortunately, but it's so hard to believe that the very first episode of Secrets of Star Wars I was ever on, was when we kind of relaunched the show after Father Roderick and Dom had basically done it for a time, and then we kicked it off again after it had been kind of on hiatus, I think, for a little while with The Mandalorian, like with the launch of Disney Plus. And as hard as it is to believe, I was going back and looking, it was November 19th, 2019.
Wow.
And that was Secrets of Star Wars episode 27. And so here we are at 151. We have this whole big family, this growing family of panelists and hosts. So I was just reminiscing a little bit of how excited I still am to be part of all this. And here we are, Season 3. So just do you guys just want to share maybe a little quick as far as your own just at least Cliff's Notes version of your kind of background with Mandalorian and just how you felt coming into this season? Let me start with you, Josh, just because you're next to me on the little window thing here. I'll go clockwise.
So I guess going into The Mandalorian this season, I was just pretty excited. You know, it's been one of the bigger things that Star Wars has been putting out ever since sort of, I guess, COVID started and everything. Like high school, I remember like coming home watching The Mandalorian, and that was like the main series to be watching, basically. And season 1 was great. Season 2 sort of started slacking a little bit and kind of just maintained. And then I think it started off just blowing me out of the waters. So
literally, as we'll get to. How about you, Father?
I started watching just because I got a new iPhone that came with, or Verizon came with, sorry, commercial ad there, but it came with free subscription to Disney Plus, and everybody had been talking about Baby Yoda and all that on Star Wars, and what the heck. And so I binge watched most of season 1. Oh, okay. And just, it really was Star Wars as the Star Warsiest almost. And so I was excited about season 2. And then there was season 2.5, which was, okay, where did that come from? But I'm ready for season 3.
Yeah. And Pat, how about you?
Yeah, season 1 hit during the pandemic, and so, not a lot else to do. But super excited for it. And watching it, I remember watching the very first episode and that closing and being like, well, that was Star Wars. There was nothing that wasn't Star Wars about that. There's other spin-off shows I've seen that didn't quite feel Star Wars, and that felt Star Wars. And from then, kind of hooked from then on. I kind of agree. I really enjoyed season 1. I really enjoyed season 2. I actually like season 2 slightly better. Okay. And I liked all of the different genres they explored in season 2. Yeah. I love the spaghetti Western episode was by far my favorite. Where the Tusken Raiders were speaking Italian. That was
just like those little critters in this episode.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Which we'll definitely get to that. and was really curious to see where they take the show after, the big reveal at the end of season 2 and Luke and Grogu going and all of that. I was a little mystified and honestly a little not as terribly happy that we got a 2.5 because I kind of wanted the Book of Boba Fett to be about Boba Fett. Yeah. But we did get that. And so now I am mostly just curious about season 3. Like, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we going to get there? That kind of thing. Yeah. Well, and that's a good kickoff here because I'll give the quick little brief synopsis here for, as I always say, anyone who needs this. It just is kind of funny to me because you've seen it. Why would you ever listen to this show? I'm just waiting for eventually, like, because you do enough as you guys I'm sure know too. You do enough anything media or online or whatever, inevitably you're going to get somebody who shoots you a message or something that's just like, why did you spoil it? I'm like, okay.
It's very hard not to see them.
Right, yeah. But this episode is just chock full of all kinds of goodies. And in the basic synopsis here, I'm just bringing it up. So we have right off the bat, we have this ceremony that we're gonna break all this down as we go. But we have a youngling. Not youngling, there I go. What's it? A foundling. A foundling, right? The Mandalorian version.
Foundling.
Somethingling. We have this foundling ceremony, which we haven't seen really happen before, but of course interrupted by a giant monster, which we'll come back to, of course, and then Din and Grogu saving the day, and then prompting this really interesting driving forth of this plot, this redemption plot that we got teased in the Book of Boba Fett. This need to bathe in the waters of the mines on Mandalore. And then we get this jump over to Navarro because Din, of course, has set this up. He's going to go on this mission where he needs to avail himself of this path of redemption so he can be recognized again by the Children of the Watch and become part of this sect again, which he still associates with so much because of his childhood. And even though he's seen other Mandalorians and we're going to pursue this, sort of subplot as well, his heart seems still with his original, Mandalorian family. So he needs some help, which I was surprised to discover the help that he was looking for to go back and specifically request now High Magistrate Greef Karga to give him the remaining parts of IG-11 to attempt to resurrect. I mean, we got so much we can talk about with this. Right, resurrection, baptism, redemption, all this. So that doesn't go so well, at least at first. Din needs to get some extra parts, so we're going to see where he goes with that. There's a run-in with some pirates. There's some challenges going on, of course, there, and some of Greef's background that's in play. Then we ultimately see all of this culminate in a pretty cool little space battle, which was neat, followed, of course, by Din attempting to rekindle this I was going to say relationship, but not in a romantic way, right? This conquering relationship, trying to rekindle with Bo-Katan, which doesn't go so well. And then we just get this mention at the end that he's going to Mandalore no matter what, and he's going to let her know, if there's anything there. So there's all this mystery. The episode just sort of concludes there. It's just a kind of a good launch into this season, and that's the synopsis in a nutshell. So I thought we can back up here and just kind of get your guys' initial thoughts here from this opening scene, which the only note I had was I said the last thing they prepare you for, at least in my experience with baptismal prep, is a 100-foot alligator attacking you as you're trying to do it, or as apparently the audio description described it as a, quote, giant dinosaur turtle. So what were your guys' thoughts of this opening scene?
It looked like whatever that thing was in Jurassic World that comes out of the water and eats people, I thought of.
Yeah, I got that vibe. How about you, Josh?
I thought it was funny how they kept trying to shoot it with blasters whenever it wasn't working, and then someone shot their flamethrower at it in the water. I thought that was by far my favorite thing. I just see the water splashing. He just shoots his flamethrower right at it, just trying to avoid it.
It's and I wonder, because they didn't say, I mean, was that something that they expected to happen or is known to happen at that site, or was that catch everybody's surprise, or I guess we just don't know. But
well, and I got to be honest, I was surprised, even just backing up a little bit, because I want to ask you guys about this, because my wife was on the same page. I didn't really know what we were seeing at first, because there's no age markers when they're in the armor, so I thought it was maybe like a flashback to Din's, sort of ceremony. So I was like, I don't know if I was supposed to be as shocked by the entrance of the Naboo starfighter, because I was totally like taken aback, like,
until that showed up, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Once you saw it, you're like, oh, okay, so this is present time now. That's not Din.
Right.
Especially as much as Boba Fett kept doing flashbacks, it was sort of slowing that mindset.
And they did have a little filter on his. It really, when they would transition to it, there'd be that little green kind of hue or something, but there was nothing like that. But I did find it interesting. I was doing a little research right before we went on tonight, because I didn't have a lot of time to do I did the prep, but I didn't have a lot of time to do some of the cool like nooks and crannies. But the kid apparently is Ragnar, which is a great name, but played by Wesley Kimmel, who's Jimmy Kimmel's son, who also played the Tusken Kid in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
So there's this kid's already got 2 Star Wars credits to
There was also apparently a Jon Favreau Mandalorian in there.
Would that be the one? Well, because doesn't he do the voice of Paz Vizsla? I think he's not in the suit.
So. But yeah, he's still someone in there.
The guy in the armor, I think, is the actor who the very first scene in episode 1 of season 1, who gets in Mando's face at the bar, like that big kind of Norse looking dude. I think he's the guy in the actual costume, they said, but I think it's Jon Favreau doing the voice.
I'm not sure.
But what did I wanted to ask you specifically, what did you guys think she was about to do with the dish of water? Because she didn't get to do it, because that's when the thing attacked. I was really curious. Like she says the thing and puts the helmet on, and then she picks up like that bowl of water, and she's about to do something with it, and I was like, is she gonna pour it on his helmet? Like,
that was my basic guess, just sort of like the idea of, I guess, like anointing them into it, kind of thing. And I feel like that's just sort of like a basic understanding of like having to pour it over them, have it sort of like come about them, and being welcomed in that way.
I figured we were meant to wonder about that. Did you catch that, Father? I didn't catch it the first time.
I didn't, and I've only watched it. Sorry, I've only watched it once, and I just I think I was still in my "what the heck is going on" stage,
okay,
so I didn't pick up on that part of it.
But that I don't know about you guys, but like as far as the visuals of it, I thought it was really well done, because I know there's been a lot of criticism, a lot of concern, about a lot of these studios in the sort of pandemic and post-pandemic era pushing the visual effects folks too hard and maybe cutting some corners here and there. And I feel like you can see that in some stuff that's come out last few years. But I don't know. What you guys think? I thought this was pretty compelling. I didn't notice it being less impressive than the Krayt Dragon or anything from last time.
For the fight scene, I think it was pretty solid. I think there are some scenes on Navarro later on where they started slacking a little bit, where you could really tell it seemed like a green screen. Okay. But I thought the fight was choreographed pretty well. I thought the music was really nice for it. I thought like they did a really good job restarting the Mandalorian and picking it up into an action scene.
Sure.
It's a real contrast with Andor, which has an action scene about once every 3 episodes. So
yeah, and well, that's something, and it's inevitable, right? That you tend to, with all the content, you tend to compare and contrast, But and we have, of course, as our a wide range of people's opinions about the different shows and everything. But that was one thing I think it was a common, I guess, criticisms, right? Or at least observation that just the style of Andor was much more.
Like
I said to my wife, that's what I said to Christine when they had the like they finally broke out blasters. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been wanting. I just realized I haven't heard a blaster sound effect in a while. So, but yeah. So the we just got Pat back here a little tech difficulty, but we were just talking about the giant dinosaur turtle. So just did you have any thoughts on that opening sequence or the baptismal imagery there of the ceremony?
Turtle gator, crocodile, or turtle dial. I think turtle dial is probably my favorite. Turtle
I like
dial.
when they even had them roll, right? Like how crocodiles or alligators roll and stuff. I was like, well, that's much scarier when they're that big.
Yeah. I do have to critique the Mandalorians and their attack. I mean, you're sticking the bombs on the shells. Come on, guys. It's
Josh was just saying, like, why are you shooting fire at through water? Like,
yeah, you're a bunch of guys who wear armor all the time, and you attack the armor. Come on, man.
Like, I think you just throw them all into its mouth. Give that a shot,
Yeah. No,
kudos to Din, by the way, for being the guy. Like, he flew down the Krayt's mouth, right?
I was saying, he's already tried, so he knows how it works.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Yep. No, my favorite part about the scene was this is not Din, right?
Yeah.
When his ship swoops in, and you're like, oh, this is happening now. This isn't the pass.
That does seem like a common, like most people I talk to are in the same boat of like, yeah, that I thought that was a flashback, so, but, and of course, Grogu's little emergence in the bubble, was brilliant. But, then we have that conversation with Din and the armor. And it's neat because my first take was just that it's the first that we've seen her anywhere remotely like shaken up. And she's still like, she always keeps her cool, but like, she's definitely not like totally in control. Like she's always been in control of like every situation. And now there's like this, you've removed your helmet, but like she does owe him because he just saved all of them. So you can sense that little tension there. But let me start with you, Pat.
He has the darksaber.
He does. Yeah, right. But I'll go backwards this time just to get Pat in here since we lost you there for a bit. What did you sort of think about the way that this conversation's going between the two of them, and so kind of her take on this redemption possibility? She doesn't seem too interested in entertaining the possibility at all at first.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the more I thought about it, the more it struck me as the kind of conversation that would occur between like a first, like first century Jew and a rabbi, right? The temple's been destroyed. The priestly class has been wiped out, right? But yet we still have the law. And in the law, if I am going to go redeem myself after becoming unclean or after sinning or after something, I have these things I have to do. I have to go to the temple. I have to make these sacrifices. The temple's been burned down. The priests have all been killed.
Yeah.
And so you see the rabbi, that, you know, the lawyers basically go, well, this is the law. And the guy being like, but our planet got destroyed. like, isn't there some kind of wiggle room here?
Yeah. Well,
this is the law, you know?
Right.
And that's kind of what it strikes me as sort of this, you're in a religion that was based around a particular object or a particular place, and that place is now no longer what it was. And so what does it mean for that religion to move forward? That's what it struck me as. The more I thought about it, it didn't hit me that way right away.
That's kind of this. Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, I was like, this is very much like kind of what and I guess the post-exilic Jews, you know, after the Babylonian exile, what they had to go through. It's like, okay, well, how do we deal with the fact that we don't have a temple anymore and we can't do this?
Yeah.
Like, so what's the path forward?
Father, what do you think of that?
That's an interesting idea I had not thought of. Obviously, the temple's still not there, so the Jews have worked their way through it. Mandalore appears, on the other hand, appears to still, to some degree, be around, and so they're going to have to figure out what it looks like going forward. This is the way.
Yeah. How about you, Josh? That scene in particular, anything jump out at you?
I feel like I've heard her say that to him like 1,000 times at this point, and it seems like there has been no consequences for him at all other than just saying he's not a Mandalorian.
Right. Yeah, he's just out. It's not like he gets... Like, that's the punishment.
And that's what also, I guess, comes in with the time thing, where they said, like, it's been, like, 2 or 3 years or whatever since... Like, there's some sort of time jump recently. And...
Yes, yeah. I think
it's kind of like... I saw something about that as well.
Yeah.
And it just made it interesting then to be like, he's been saying that he's going to atone for this for so long, but then hasn't done it yet, or she's been like saying, you gotta fix this, you gotta do something about this, but then like nothing's been done.
Yeah, I think the time jump thing, I heard it right from, you know, Favreau. Well, I didn't, you know, like, I'm hanging out with Jon Favreau. I saw it on a YouTube video, just to be clear. Yeah, you know, me and John were having some beers. No, but
coffee every Thursday.
Right, yeah, just hanging out. Yeah, you know, conference call with Dave Filoni. Right. No, but it was funny because the two of them, and many of you probably saw it too, but I love that because the look on Dave's face was a riot. Because like, I didn't see anything else about this, and then Jon Favreau just very casually says, yeah, you know, and because, you know, then, you know, he sent him off with Luke and now it's been 2 years, you know, and like Dave just kind of like goes wide eyed and like looks at the camera because like he knows like Twitter's going to explode. but that was, I wasn't clear though if he was saying like it's 2 years since Grogu went off with Luke because, you know, was he with, I didn't get the impression he was with Luke for 2 years, but it seems like he was with him for a while and now he's been back with Din maybe for a little while.
There's still just been like that significant time jump, which I think is important.
I didn't get the impression he was with Luke for all that long, but
yeah.
But you do get the impression that they've been at it. The Mandalorians have been at it a while, or this sect, because there's a bunch of them again, right? And they're inducting foundlings or baptizing them or whatever you want to call it. But they have a place again, and they're all set up again, whereas, you know, at the end of season 1, everything was just sort of wiped out and they were scattered to the wind.
And even when he linked up with them in Book of Boba Fett, it was just her and Paz Vizsla. You know, it's like, now there's 3 of us, but then he leaves because he's an apostate. So, you know, but yeah, and I didn't count, but I mean, it looked like there were a good, I don't know, 25, 30 there at least. So they're gathering. Oh, and we know that there's others, you know, we know the Bo-Katan and her crew, and then Sabine's out there somewhere, you know, from Rebels. So, which, by the way, nice timing here. Then we get that light speed jump you know, because
Purrgil.
yeah, I know. I was like, I went nuts, and I don't know how many of you guys have watched like with the animated series or you know, with especially Rebels.
I have. That's why I was like, I saw them there. I was just like, that's such also a fantastic view of like just Baby Yoda Grogu looking at it and just being like, wow.
Right. The wonder of it. And then but he crawls into Dad's lap still just to be safe. You know, like it was adorable. You know, but it was funny because, and for anyone, you know, for anyone listening who's not really into Rebels, these are the space whales, which is funny because Star Trek dabbled with the idea of some kind of whales in space because that ship and I'm jumping here, of course, but in was it the Voyage Home? What was the one? Was it Star Trek? I'm forgetting now. Yeah, that's my favorite one. Where they go, you know, back in time to San Francisco to bring humpback whales back to the future to communicate with
nuclear vessels.
Yeah. To communicate with a space cigar. Like the ship always looked like a cigar to me. Like it's just anyway. But in Star Wars, so these things are apparently the source of. They're called Purrgils. They're the source of the idea, I guess, for the original invention of sort of hyperspace technology because they are creatures who can naturally do this. And so they became instrumental in Rebels by basically. Here, I will spoil it. If you've never seen, if you want to watch Rebels and haven't seen it yet. Stop now and come back later. But they, of course, are instrumental in the end when the kind of main character, Ezra, who can communicate with them, draws them to this battle, and they basically wrap around Thrawn's ship that has Ezra in it, and they jump into light speed, you know, hyperspace, God knows where. You know, so it's like a sacrifice, you know, because they're not using a navigation system or anything, but we have no idea where Ezra gets to. And all we've had is this hint that, you know, Thrawn and Ezra will somehow be working their way into live action, probably in the Ahsoka show. But this was cool, you know, just with that little background. I got excited because I felt personally like this was sort of a little signal, you know, that, we're bringing these in somehow, you know.
Interesting, because Timothy Zahn has a completely non-Star Wars novel about space whales being used for navigation. I think it's Zahn.
Does he seriously?
Yeah. So maybe they stole it from him.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know the origin of that at all. Yeah. First I thought it was weird, you know, and then I was like, well, this is cool. So, but then we get to Navarro. What would you guys take on this? Because I didn't know in the trailers really what I was looking at. And the time jump comment from Favreau helps with this because it just seems so much more polished than even like a season or so ago. I think you have to have a little time jump here for that to make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think without the time jump, it's really unexplainable. Because if you're talking like, oh yeah, this is just after season 2, you're like, no, it's still kind of a dusty desert, you know, not Tatooine, kind of Tatooine looking town, and then to what it is now, which is this, you know, with the high magistrate. I love that. But the very polished, it's not a school or it's not a bar anymore. It's a school, right. Kind of feel to it with the droid walking around telling you about the highlights of the area.
I thought that whole sequence was a little bit of fan service, but you know, I'm cool with a little fan service, so no big deal.
Did you guys get like a medieval times sort of vibe off it too? Like I got kind of like a Renaissance fair sort of feel.
No, but I like that.
Like you have like the Twi'lek, like you have like the minstrels and stuff out in the courtyard, and like there was just something about it. Like I got that kind of
the droid town crier.
Yes, yeah. And the 2 little droids pulling his cape behind him. Like it was just, oh my god. Well, and honestly, it's similar to like. And I think I saw this even in an interview somewhere, like there's definitely kind of a little hat tip with Greef's character, I think, to Lando a little bit, you know, like in the capes and the fashion and everything. But I feel like he's having so much more fun with it. Like each time you see Greef, he's even more like gussied up. It's pretty fun.
And he's got robots carrying his cape.
Yeah, just behind him, you know. And of course, then... Go ahead, sorry.
Give yourself a title. You can call yourself the High whatever you want, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I love how like every 5 seconds he's correcting people. High magistrate, not just the magistrate anymore. I'm the High magistrate.
And he actually gets annoyed about it too. And that droid comes in to tell him the pirates are there. But that was, oh my gosh, I loved it. Of course, the clip that we all saw ahead of time, or most of us, you know, if you saw that when they put that one out like a week early or whatever, with Grogu spinning himself using the Force. In the chair.
That was so me, is all I could think of. I'd be sitting there spinning the chair.
and then he grabs the little M&M or whatever it is. But like he's just these little things where it's just like he's so powerful, but he's just a kid, and it's just so funny. He's like unashamedly using the Force now, like just all the time. But like it's still this really humble way, which is so cute.
He was very much a comic relief during the episode.
Oh my gosh.
Seeing him spinning in the chair where they're like, I have had a lot of issues. We got to keep fixing them, so I can't come help you anymore.
Right. Yep.
So. And he's just, wee.
Yeah, he doesn't have a care in the world. And you're thinking, like, this is the kid who, like, not that long ago, like, Force stopped the wave of fire from that, Imperial shock troop or whatever right around the corner. And he's like, But, oh my gosh. I was just waiting for him. Well, I'm glad it wasn't the blue stuff, whatever he ate, those little cookies or whatever last time he was in Navarro and then threw up, which was a good scene. He learned his lesson. So.
Yeah. And I like Navarro as like the place we go to because it is kind of the central location for the show. Like it's always the place that Mando returns to when he's got the next thing he has to do. And sort of we've been given like the opening scene is this is your main quest for the season, or possibly more, because it took him 2 seasons to complete the last quest, which he completed and then didn't.
Right,
because Grogu came back.
which I'm pretty sure was a Disney boardroom thing.
Yeah, Well, and I love I love High Magistrate Carl Weathers pointing that out. I'm like, why is he still with you? Like, why is Grogu still here? What's his name? Oh yeah, and he explains his name. That was a great scene. Yep. Grogu. What? His name is Grogu. Whatever.
What did he say to her? It was just like he said something like, whatever you or whatever you say, or it was something. It was dismissive like that. It was a little like Pelly's like Grogu. I'm not gonna call him that.
Which is like he's just pantomiming the reaction of pretty much the entire fan base. Like,
oh yeah,
no,
totally.
He's Baby Yoda. Shut up. He doesn't have enough Baby Yoda.
Always. But I did think too, like, it was neat because I don't know, and there's a whole wide variety here. And I don't want to like open up a can of worms or anything, but of course, like there was a lot of talk ahead of time about how are they going to handle, the Gina Carano situation, and whatever your opinion is about how all of that went down. I thought, at least in the show, I thought that was probably about the best they could have done with that, at least in my opinion of it. Just it made sense for her character, and it's. All things considered, I thought that was fair too, because I didn't think it would have been fair to sort of kill her off screen or something like that. I didn't think they would do that. But what would you guys think of that? Just
do a
she's an awesome soldier, so she's gone. What's that?
Do a Tasha Yar to her, kill her off in a meaningless way.
Right. Yes. So I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that. Oh, go ahead, yeah, Josh.
I thought it was a good way to at least put her off for now, and then if something ever got fixed, like she could possibly come back in for like a special mission kind of thing.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
It still leaves the door open enough, but it's also kind of like she's out doing her own thing far away from here now. So.
I think they covered their bases.
Well, it was a natural progression, right? Because the last time we see her in season 2, she's talking with one of the X-Wing pilots who's talking to her about coming back to the I mean, at this point, it's not the rebellion. It's the
right.
I keep wanting to say alliance. It's not the alliance. Republic. It's the new Republic. Yeah. And so he's saying, hey, you're ex, rebellion. You're a marshal here. What do you think about maybe, going higher in the ladder? And she turns him down at that time, but it's a natural progression. Like it didn't feel like it got shoehorned. It was something like, okay, that was a good way to do it, and leaves it open for her possibly coming back. Heck, depending on how things go, she could get her own show down the line. You never know.
It seems like they never know either. Sometimes what they're doing over there. they're trying a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find it. It's Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. I can't remember the character's name on there who plays that pilot, because he's in the trailer for this season too. So I don't know. I'll have it here in a second. What was it? Carson Teva or Teva? Something like that. So I think there's a lot of people. I'm one of them who's wanting to see if Dave Filoni's Wolf, whatever his name is, character's back too, but not yet.
That's right. Because it was him. Yeah, it was Filoni, him, and another actress, I want to say, who blew up the Mandalorian's old crew.
I think that was Deb Chow in that scene, in that one. And on some point, Rick, I don't know if it was that scene, but Rick Famuyiwa, who directed this episode, had one of those cameos too at some point. But he's what did he? I think he did the first season. He had a couple. I think he had the episode where Mando has to fight or has to negotiate with the Jawas and then get that egg. I think he did that one, and I think he did the heist one that was kind of interesting with the prison ship. So he's had a couple. So he was an interesting choice to kick this season off with, and I think that was a good move having one of their veterans come in. So did you guys see? Let me just ask you quick. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you saw did they announce the directors for this season? I don't know if I heard that or not. I know some of them. I think they said Filoni might have some. My guess is that means Ahsoka's in here maybe somewhere. I don't know. That's usually how that works.
Yeah. I think they announced overall who actors or directors were, but not per episode.
Not episode. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me jump back here quick because of course we have this run-in with these pirates. So Greef and after attempting to no sort of end, to get Mando to stay. Of course, they go out to check this pirate situation.
Go back for just a second. Wikipedia has directors up for all the episodes.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. I'll have to...
Carl Weathers gets one.
Yes.
Really?
I think he had asked for that because he's done more directing over the years, I think.
Looking forward to that one. What episode is that?
20. It's 20 episode 24 in this season.
That's the I think I'm hosting that one. That'll be fun.
Can't remember if I'm 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't know.
Change that.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, we got some new ones on there. But Rick Famuyiwa he's got a bunch. The first one and then the last two.
So he's bookending.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Bryce Dallas Howard
gets the big endpoints for the arc.
I don't recognize Rachel Morrison is next week. I don't know. That doesn't ring a bell. Lee Isaac Chung and then Peter Ramsey. But those are 3. I haven't seen any of them before. So we'll have to see.
I'm not too familiar with directors, so
yeah. But some that we don't have that we've had before, so it'll be interesting. Little bit
Ramsey sounds
different.
Really familiar, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I'll have to look that up later, but yeah, we'll just continue on here a little bit. So the pirate scene, any takeaways, you guys, thoughts there? Because the only one I want to mention just up front is this repentance theme, this kind of new beginnings. I was really thinking of Greef a lot in this scene, and how far he's come, and we don't know what happened. We know that Moff Gideon, if you remember in season 1, when he reveals that he knows their names, and this mysterious who is this guy? How does he know who they are? And he describes Greef, I think, as, if I haven't seen it in a while, but he said something like disgraced former magistrate Greef Karga. But you don't know what, you just know that Greef has been this bounty hunter guild guy. Mm-hmm. But then that's the first time you get this idea, he's got some kind of higher level background. He's disgraced. Was he skimming off the top? What was it? But so there is some kind of, he's on this redemption arc, and he seems really serious and committed to making this a better place and really trying to establish for Navarro what these outsiders and these republics and these empires and these big, government type, places are trying to do. So what do you guys, I thought I'd throw that out there, but what do you think about the scene with the pirates and maybe anything on Greef with that kind of new beginning?
He's very much firm on his new beginnings of turning. I think it's very important to see him wanting to turn a bar basically into a school.
Yeah.
Sort of seeing where a bottom of society would be, where we see people selling drugs, doing a lot of bad things in a bar.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the bar also before that was where he did all of his former business with the bounty hunters and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a place for learning and making society better.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot in that, in him wanting that to be the school then.
And the pirates arguing, basically saying you can't change, you are who you were, and High Magistrate is saying, I'm not that guy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He can be.
We might have had pirates, but we still had the Western quick draw showdown thing there too.
Yes.
Pirates versus Cowboys.
Yeah, and I was wondering if Din was going to intervene before that first round of shots got fired, but he waited.
It's Grief's show.
Yep.
That respect, that authority, that was kind of interesting. What do you think, Pat? We were just talking. All I said was I just set up here that this is this redemption arc kind of that Grief continues to be on is interesting too. Like becoming this new figure.
I think what strikes me is sort of the difference between what the world was and what Grief was able to do being inside of like the old empire or the remnants of an imperial outpost, and then what he's able to do with now a freed up they're not under Republic control or anything, but the space lanes are now free, the trade routes are open, like and what he's able to then turn that into, it's sort of like he's benefiting from the fact that the Republic exists and they're not being heavy-handed with with trade and locking everything down. And he's dismissive of them, but yet, like we all know, his city would still be the dusty backwards kind of thing if the Imperials were still present. Like it would still be as bad as it always was. And because the New Republic has basically reopened the train lanes and made things more or less safe, that he's able to do what he does. I don't know. That caught me as kind of like a social, and I'm still coming off of Andor, just society as a whole, intergalactic connected society, like what the difference of a different style of government does to
he's still
the people on the ground.
Right.
He still doesn't want to be part of the New Republic. He wants to be his own little thing out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's so in my mind, I'm juxtapositioning it with like Ferrix and what we see at the end of Andor, with what's going down on Ferrix with the whole, it was sort of a vibrant town that sort of gets slowly locked down by the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the very opposite happening here with Navarro, where it's sort of blossoming because of the New Republic.
Yeah.
Even though they're both on the outer rim, like they're both not necessarily core planets or they're trade route planets, but they're not, necessarily what you would think of an outpost for either the New Republic or a government, just in general. So I know that's not really about Grief's arc, but I think it's interesting to watch Navarro's arc. Along with Grief.
That's a good point, because I think it's the principle of subsidiarity, right? Which kind of gets ignored. No, I don't say ignored, but like I whenever I teach on it or whenever it comes up, it's people seem more familiar with solidarity, which is of course important, but I always say it's like a balance, because if too much focus on solidarity, I think, can lead to this sort of, steamrolling of the local level, and local traditions and family. It can become too much of this big, like, we're all one thing. And it's like, well, yeah, but how? Like, what does that mean for like me here in my neighborhood, sometimes? And so I think there's a principle there. They don't use the word in the show, of course, but Grief does seem to have this wariness, this suspicion, where like he doesn't seem to think, you're right, like the New Republic isn't as evil as the Empire or something like that. It's a totally different attitude, but still, like, should Coruscant or Hosnian Prime, whatever it is now, be running this? Like, I'm the guy here on the ground. I know this place. I know these people. I know this sector. We can make this work. And I think there's a good lesson to be learned there.
Yeah, I think what we get out of the the original trilogy is an example of too far on the solidarity line, right? This is the Empire and we're one, and right. the more you tighten your fist, the more systems will slip through your fingers.
Yep.
And then what we get in the prequels is very much the too much on your own, and how that could be manipulated, and how you could trick people into literally fighting themselves in a civil war that's not really a civil war, right? Right. And ignoring the sequel movies.
Yeah, they're not talking about. Well, the best thing about them is coming up here in a minute, I think. So,
but you could talk about the possibility of the New Republic walking that balance a lot better.
Yeah. Well, oh, go ahead, Josh. No, sorry. Yeah, please.
So just also with the solidarity, I saw it more as like an opposite of lack of trust in a overarching government. I mean, they're coming off of someone who is just enforcing everything and slaving down on them. Was to stop someone else from being able to come in and do the exact same thing again right after.
Oh yeah. That's I wasn't the biggest fan of the Hunger Games, but and if I'm spoiling the Hunger Games for you, you're way behind. But at the end, and that was interesting. That was an interesting discussion point back then. I remember when they finally have this victory and right, what do? But like the good guy, President was it Julianne Moore, I think, playing her. It's like, and now we're going to have Hunger Games for the bad guys, and she like. Oh my gosh, so that danger that you run of when you have even people who were horribly oppressed or treated unjustly, right? There's no carte blanche, that the worst suffering just gives you to then inflict that on somebody else. It's right. I mean, part and parcel with our faith, right? It's never licit, right? To deliberately do evil, even in hoping that some good will come from it. But
stare into the abyss too long.
Yeah. Oh, it's scary. And speaking of scary a little bit, what'd you guys think? Were you at all like expecting this IG-11 thing? Because I was completely. When he says, "Why are you here?" and he's like, "I need him." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" But what do you guys think of that? Because I know there's different opinions, and I'm not sure. Like, I'm excited, but I've heard some people criticize it, like as far as Disney has to stop doing this, of like nobody's ever really gone. I don't know. I can see both sides of that. What do you think?
I thought it fit his character well. He doesn't like robots, and he trusted this one, and he's stuck with it.
Right. He's that desperate. No.
Well, no, it's just. He has some issue with droids, which goes into his childhood of sort of seeing him being rescued and becoming a Mandalorian. It's sort of been ingrained in his mind from childhood that, like, droids are bad. But then he has this one that he trusts. So without having, like, a long connection with him, he was able to actually trust this one.
And that's that it transcends death in a weird. Maybe I'm overreading it, but this, like, he's willing to believe in resurrection for IG-11 because he needs him, and that's how much he cares about him. You were saying, Father? I'm sorry.
No, I don't like them following the track of that other Star franchise, and that nobody's ever dead. If we need them long enough, we'll get them back again.
That does show up quite a bit.
It didn't strike me as that. It struck me more as Din Djarin. The more I've gotten to know his character, he is a stubborn SOB. Yes,
Yes, he is.
And he's like, I've learned to trust this one droid. I'm not going to do it for any other droid. Right. I don't care if this droid tries to murder me and Grogu after we turn it back on. We're going to fix him. Because I'm me, it's just, but it fits his character. It didn't feel like fan service to me, or like bringing back the dead or whatever. It just felt like, that's totally believable for him because he is hard-headed.
And I don't know if I just love things like, this has come up a few times on the show, I think before. I've noticed it resonating with me, but as a in my case, as a child of the 80s, I really love anything that just, I don't know if Favreau's deliberately trying to do it for that kind of like 80s feel. It's definitely not to the level of something like, Stranger Things or something where it's like a totally like, time, kind of set piece like that. But, I mean, Star Wars, of course, came out in 77 and then 1980 with Empire and 83 with Return of the Jedi. But I think, everybody would agree that the immediate wake of the cultural change that those movies made, even though they came out initially in the 70s, there's a real 80s kind of importance, I think, in the history of Star Wars, as when it really grew in the merchandise and then the books shortly thereafter. So anytime there's something in the new stuff that has a little bit of an 80s feel or vibe to it, I think fits. So the reason I'm saying that is this was totally like Terminator. Right, like IG-11, like crawling across the floor after him, like that was totally like Terminator 1, right? Like at the end kind of feel.
Yeah,
and that was like, yeah, like I got that vibe, and even like Michael Biehn,
he even
of course,
gets
like
crushed. Oh my God,
he gets crushed.
Just put that together.
He gets crushed. The red eyes, and
oh man,
and. Yeah, so I totally got that vibe, and I was thinking it reminded me of Michael Biehn in the Jedi episode, right? With Ahsoka back in season. Was that season 2, right? Of course, having played, Kyle Reese in the original Terminator. So there have been things for some reason where it seems to cross over once in a while with some kind of, 80s property. Terminator twice, apparently.
As far as I know, he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say he is. I'm just,
yeah.
Why not? Like if we were in that position, we probably would. So
yeah.
You're a fanboy and you get to run your own fandom. Oh,
absolutely. Oh my. Well, so I wanted to just knock this into the sort of your guys. I was trying to think of a tennis analogy. I don't really play tennis. It's your side of the court here. The ball's in your court. There it is. With then of course introduction to these little potential droid repair saviors, the Anzellans, which for me personally was like the best thing to come out of the sequel trilogy. So, with Babu Freak and now his companions. So what did you guys think of how this was handled? Any thoughts? Some things that jumped out at you that you enjoyed?
Just in case they've saturated the market for Grogu's, now they've got something else. Is that my cynical side coming out?
Or him holding, there's going to be so much of that.
Bad baby.
You made a new friend. It's a big hug.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Every time Carl Weathers yelled out what Babu Frick or whoever it was saying, and eventually he's like, I got it. I understand it. I got it. That was great.
And there was something particularly it just feels like, like Father, did you say earlier about the, like it's a little reminiscent of the Tuscans speaking Italian or something. Like there was a little, just my wife who's of Italian ancestry and everything, like she was just having a lot of fun with it too, right from the get-go. He's in the doorway, the little guy, and the first time you see him, he's just saying, what do you want? He's so business, right from the beginning.
It's a long line of folks who repair droids who are all kind of seedy-ish.
Yeah, it's always something.
That's what I was thinking is Din needs to go to Tatooine, and we know there's a junkyard there that's got parts for everything. So there you go.
Yes.
Yep. And,
well, I wonder if we're gonna get there soon, because we've seen Tatooine in the trailers, So yeah.
You always have to end up on Tatooine at some point. It's like written in the rules somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It set up another quest for him to just get the memory circuit board. He's like, everything else is broken, but we can fix it except the memory. So
yeah. What did he say too? He's like, it's broke. He's like, what if I get the chip? Oh yeah, no problem. We fix it.
It's like, there's no way. It's not gonna work. No way.
We can get it. Everything else.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, whatever. like
hilarious.
Just binary flipped on and off.
And I didn't notice it in the credits at first, because the credits. This is my problem on Disney Plus, and I do this all the time with like Bad Batch or whatever. Like I hear a voice, I want to know who it is, and they have it timed. So, D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch, Michelle Ong as Omega, and then I go to hit pause, and just as I'm about to do it, it shifts it down to the right because it's trying to promote the next episode, and I'm like, no, let's have to go back but with this one, it's like that, but then the font's really tiny, so they're trying to pause it, but I missed the first time it was Shirley Henderson who did Babu Freak's voice and who played Moaning Myrtle in Harry Potter movies and stuff. It just they credited her as the voice for the Anzellan crew. So I guess she was all of them. That didn't say anything about if it was actually Babu Freak in there somewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that one out the whole time. I'm like, is this Babu? Is it not? I really want it to be, but
right. Yeah, it wasn't totally clear, but
yeah,
it's nice for them to add some sort of continuity from like a different series, I guess, into the sequels for that.
Well, it's speculation at this point, but I mean, do you guys like? Well, let me ask you, like, not so much what do you think will happen, but would you like it if? Maybe I'll put it that way. You know, and obviously we all have there's mixed opinions about the sequel trilogy, but there's a substantial amount, I think, and I put myself in that boat. That was just the longer time goes on, I just was disappointed by a lot of it, but would you guys like to see something like, in Bad Batch, they seem to clearly be moving in that direction, but with Mandalorian to perhaps enhance the sequel, because the sequels happened, right? You can't change them. Do you think they could be benefited by, exploring this lore and maybe filling in some gaps at this point of the timeline?
What do you mean you can't retcon them out of existence?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, that's the other way you could go with it, right? If you don't start tying in stuff to it, you can just say, yeah, they didn't really happen.
Hey, they've already retconned an entire set of books, so it can be done.
They have indeed, and they did. Well, but by the same token, I don't know if you guys read that. It's Shadow of the Sith, I think it is. One of the newer novels came out last summer, canon novels that. For me, at least, I listened to it on a long drive to a retreat. So I just devoured it pretty quickly. But it's set like a little more than halfway, I think, between episodes 6 and 7. And so it tells a story with Luke and Lando going off on this quest. And it actually sowed a lot of seeds for things that, like, if you read this novel, Rise of Skywalker almost makes sense. I'll put it that way, but it was well done. The guy who wrote it, I thought, did a good job. That was my opinion of it, but it made a lot of the things that they just threw at us in episode 9, seemingly haphazardly, or at least the way a lot of people looked at it. It kind of, I felt, gave it a little more oomph. So I'm just wondering what you guys thought about, like, if you've considered that, with maybe some spoilers or rumors rather out there about what could be accomplished in Mandalorian with that.
I mean, there's a lot of time there, right? It's sort of like the jump between the prequels and the first movie. There's at least enough time to shoe in 2 more movies and a TV show.
Right.
And so there's a lot of space between 6 and 7, and the more you put in and the more tie-ins, the more stuff it could make those make more sense. Mm-hmm. There's still just a massive continuity problem within the trilogy itself, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
That I think you have a hard time overcoming with external material. That's for me the hard thing to jump.
Well, and just the one other thing I just add quick, because my mind always goes with, and not to make this about Rise of Skywalker, but just last thing I'll say is because all Palpatine really says is just that's just very casual, like to Kylo, like, I made Snoke. I'm like, okay.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Like, so, and then Bad Batch now we're like, oh yeah, a cloning facility on this planet, this person, this guy, and this thing. So like you, in a way, it could be a positive thing in that there's so nothing that is even remotely given as far as context for stuff like that, except a pickle jar, in the background with Snoke parts in it. I'm like, all right, well, I could work with that. Just like, okay, I can have this tie in.
There's a Snoke Jar Jar connection. I'm still convinced of it, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, Snoke in a jar.
Ooh, there we go. There we go.
Oh, gosh.
Now I need to go back. As soon as we're done tonight, mark my words, I'm going to go back and see. I think there are 2 jars in Rise of Skywalker.
Always 2 there are.
Jeez. Oh, the things we can do. But before I take us too off track, let me just kind of jump to the last scene here, because this was a relatively short episode. Oh, sorry, Father.
Don't leave out the asteroid chase, which is I think a little bit more fan service.
Oops, sorry.
Let's do Jedi again.
I completely forgot. I apologize. Yeah. Right. So we had.
I was waiting for the big space worm to come out, but it never did.
Something. Yeah. Well, and that, what'd you guys think of? I got a kick out of what was his name? Gorian Shard, Pirate King, and who I'm not familiar. The guy who does his voice, I'm not familiar with, but it said the performance artist for it was Kerry Jones, who there's another 80s connection. He was the original, not the original Predator, but he the Predator series. He was in some of the 2000s era Predator movies, but I think he played Chrysanthemum in Book of Boba Fett. So he gave us the body or mocap work, I guess, for Pirate King Gorian Shard. But yeah, what was your guys' take from that? Did that really feel like a good Star Warsy kind of asteroid battle? I enjoyed it.
It was a good battle. I mean, I enjoyed that part of it. He just looked weird. He looked like just a ball of like moss that you would pick up like from like the side of a river or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a little gross to look at him.
Well, I sent you guys a picture that I got Swamp Thing vibes, and I thought it was you that wrote back that you weren't familiar with, and I just said you weren't missing anything. I said that was a weird.
I mean, that show ran for a while too.
It did. I think it was a DC thing.
Still running?
Right.
How?
Yeah. Swamp. I hadn't thought of Swamp Thing in like 30 years, like some 25 years. But I'm assuming we'll see him again, you think?
Yeah. Because I mean, each of these pieces kind of sets up, you get the first scene, which sets up this is your grand quest. Followed by the next scene, which kind of sets up the Navarro, this is home, what home has become now, these are my allies now, and also this is my first side quest that I've got to complete, because you can never complete something without completing a side quest first, which I mean that includes just I've got to clean my sink out because the kids dumped a bunch of stuff, and then I've got to unclog it. There's always a side quest. I've always got to run.
So that's my day. It's like every day of my life.
Yeah. And then you get the scene in space, which is sort of the pirate scene, and then the scene in space follows that. Okay, this is my antagonist now, right? Like I've gotten our antagonist for this season, and the space battle's kind of been something that's been missing from this series from a Star Wars perspective, in part because the Razor Crest is just such a slow lumbering target that trying to put it into a space battle was just a bad call for anybody involved. And so we got the zipping around, and we got a fun space battle between him and pirates. And that was another piece of it. It wasn't like him versus the Republic or him versus vestiges of the Empire. We have pirates, which is like a piece of the Star Wars universe that isn't as explored as the Rebellion, the Republic, the Empire are, all of the other stuff going on. I remember the Shadows of the Empire book that in the olden days took place between, was it Empire and 5 and 6 or 4 and 5? I can't remember, but
I have to go back and check. I forget.
But it was about, for the most part, it was about the crime syndicates, right? And what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the main folks were in there, and Vader was in there, and Palpatine was in there, but the real thrust of the book was about the crime syndicates. And so there are these whole worlds within Star Wars that are being filled in and built up, and I love world building, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And him being just, the giant moss you would rake up from the side of a river. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, he's just this great. Well, it's funny because they're not, my take from that was like they're pirates, which from reality, we associate with the sea, most of the time, and like Pirates of the Caribbean kind of thing. So I felt like, but they're in space, but that's a way to kind of bring a sea-like kind of element into the character design. I wonder if that I mean, you don't design these characters by accident, so I'm sure that was probably on their minds. But
he reminded me of Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, immediately I was like, oh, interesting. Yep. Surprised he doesn't have an octopus face.
Well, and I can't help but wonder if, I've voiced this before. I love Hondo, from Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm always hoping that they're going to find a way, but I just don't know how you do that. Like, could you do a live action Hondo that was somehow voiced by Jim Cummings that would work? And I tend to think yes, because Corey Burton wasn't in the costume or something playing Cad Bane. They did voiceover for him and that worked. So I'm like, I think you could do Hondo, but you gotta have the voice right though. Right. Yeah. You can't just,
well, there's an animatronic of him at Disney World.
Right. Right. Doesn't he run the Millennium Falcon ride or something? Yeah, that's right.
Yep. You get to hear Hondo talk a lot.
Yeah, he fits in the timeline and everything, so we'll see. But well, let me just jump to our closing scene here on our little premiere kickoff for this Mandalorian season 3, and we go to if I got the name right, Kalevala, which Mando has said is a system or a planet within the Mandalorian system, not Mandalore itself. Looks an awful lot like, I don't know, coastal Ireland, the big little, I don't know, it had that vibe. To meet up, of course, with Bo-Katan here, who my first thought was, I wrote down my notes, I said all she's missing was a flagon of spotchka, which, like just have her sitting, like she's just so miserable sitting on her throne there. Like I'd imagine the blue glowing thing, but my note was, I said, or rum, but I guess the pirates probably have all of that. Yeah, was my
note. The rum gone? The pirates took it.
So, any thoughts you guys had on this? We saw a clip of this interaction, at least this part of the scene in the trailer. I'm suspicious that some of that TIE fighter battle we saw might be here too, because it looks like the same planet, and that looked like Bo-Katan's ship in the trailers. So we're going to come back here probably, but what was your guys' take, here? Anything you noticed in particular wanted to share about this exchange and kind of where Bo-Katan's at right now?
I feel like she's just a defeated person right now. She came in and was like, my crew left, they're all just mercenaries now. You have the Darksaber, my life's a lie. Everything I wanted is gone. I don't even have anything to cope with my problems, so they took all of the alcohol.
Right, the pirates took the rest of the spice.
So it's just, I don't know, it wasn't what I was looking for in her character.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see her trying to be like, I'm fighting you for this Darksaber. I'm not going to give up on anything. She's just like, I've lost everything. And she's just sitting alone in an empty castle on some random planet.
Yeah. With seemingly only one droid, like the only thing that's even there besides her at all is this like welcome droid.
She had her dreams taken from her when the whole Darksaber thing went down. I don't think she's got a plan where things go after this.
I have trouble with her being the way she is after 2 years. And I have the same problem with her as I have with Din. Like after 2 years, lots of other stuff have changed for lots of other people in this episode, but not you two. You two still seem like you're right after last time we saw you. Like, this feels to me exactly what Bo-Katan would have done, like right after, the whole Moff Gideon ship exchange and seeing Luke and Grogu going on. This would be like 2 days later, right? Like she's back sulking in her castle, and her crew's leaving her or left. And Din feels like we just saw him, shoot away from Tatooine, and now he shows up here, but apparently 2 years has gone by. So I'm like, what have they been up to? Like, it feels like they should have been up to more.
That's a good point, because she does, like, and they don't say anything in the episode that specifically gives us that timeline. But again, like the guy who's writing it is the one who said that it's 2 years. So because she says, like, when I came back without the, he's like, well, I'm ready to join your crew, like we said at the end of season 2, and he's like, and she's like, when I came back without the darksaber, they all abandoned me. And I'm like, 2 years ago, or?
But remember back to what we were saying about the opening scene where he's supposed to have been taking up on this redemption quest for the past 2 years and hasn't done it. So whatever he's been doing for the past 2 years, it hasn't been a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not sure if it's 2 years. That's the thing, is the way Filoni or Favreau said it was strange, because I don't think it's been
like the training arc time.
Well, but see, I think it had, because he said it sounded like 2 years since the end of season 2, so it may not. It doesn't seem like it's not 2 years since Grogu came back to Mando.
That's true.
But it seems like it would be 2 years since Din saw Bo-Katan. If that timeline's right. So either way, that's weird.
Right. Either way, I still feel like she'd be up to more. And so my hope is that she is up to more. Like, this is some kind of ruse. This is something she somehow found out he's going to try and go back to Mandalore. And she's like, well, I hope you go down there and get poisoned. And then I'm going to send something down to take that darksaber off your dead body. And then I'll come back triumphant. Gotta hope something like that. Like, this is her playing some kind of long game. And then to kind of feed back to my original thought between the conversation between the armorer and Din, this felt very much like the conversation between, like, maybe your average, a couple of Jews after the destruction of the temple, kind of looking at each other. What do we do now? Like, and one of them's like, well, we're going to go back and we're going to, reclaim it and it's going to be good. And the other's like, nah, man, temple's gone.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah. There's nothing magical about those waters. He's like, well, I'm going to go down there anyways. And that it just struck me as sort of this conversation between, because it is a conversation between kind of a mainstream, Mandalorian and somebody who is in this like small little enclosed faction. And so like the Mandalorians, the mainstream ones, have sort of more or less moved on because they don't have Mandalore anymore. And they really haven't. They're still stuck in this mode of being that is inconsistent necessarily or potentially with reality. And we're going to find out through the episode. I am assuming they're going to drop down onto Mandalore and we're going to find out what's down there. Yeah. But I feel like something's got to give, right? And it's not necessarily going to be Din, and it's not necessarily going to be Bo-Katan and her factions. I feel like the other faction's eventually going to have to give. And I don't know what that's going to look like over the course of the season. So I'm curious about that.
It looked pretty, there were a few clips in the trailer that seemed interesting, because there was one where like he's walking out like amongst those Mandalorians back in that covert or whatever, and like they look like they're almost either defending him or he's part of their crew. Like he looked like he belonged, and it looked like Bo-Katan. If you looked real carefully, like there's another scene with Din in the armor where it looked like Bo-Katan was off to the side with him, which I can't help but wonder, like, I feel like they have to kind of go there, but how do they pull that off, right? Because there's not, the armor and Bo-Katan are not at all on the same page. So I don't know, maybe I wonder if he's going to go sooner rather than later, and whatever happens, like his return, just like, I wonder if the fact that they have someone go and come back could somehow galvanize all of them to be like, well, maybe there is something here.
Right. And that's being the same guy who has the darksaber, right? So he then gets to check all the boxes. Like, I've been to the homeland, I've returned triumphant, I have the darksaber, everybody rally around me, kind of a thing.
I love that scene in Gladiator when, Richard Harris as the aging Marcus Aurelius is trying to get, Maximus to take control and return it to a republic. And he says, do you accept this great honor I've given you? And he says, with all my heart, no. And then Richard Harris just like shakes his head and he's like, don't you see? He's like, that's why it has to be you. Like it's just confirming his decision. Like, the kind of guy who will not at all, accept this is precisely who we need. So I wonder, because he has, Din has no delusions of grandeur. He's stubborn, as you said, which is a good character trait, but he's profoundly committed to the Mandalore identity, and he has no, arrogance. He's all about honor. As weird as it was to shoehorn them in some ways to the Book of Boba Fett, I thought some of the exchanges between him and Boba Fett in that last episode were good. About when he says about like, I'll stay here and fight with you for honor, and he quotes the code, and I think Boba says something like, you believe all that rot? He's like, absolutely. And he's like, good. Because he knows in that moment, that's the kind of guy he needs. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, humility. We should do a whole show just on, Din Djarin and humility. It might be an interesting theme to come back to, but, well, we're getting pretty much wrapped up here, guys. I just, we went a little over an hour, but this is this premiere. Of course, we want to give it a good opening here for everybody, and a lot of deep themes, I think, for this one with faith themes, right off the bat. So just in closing, is there anything any of you, guys want to share here? Any thoughts, hopes for next week? Apparently it's a slightly longer episode, which I'm excited about. That's what I've heard. So what do you think?
I'm just looking forward to seeing it, see where it goes.
With that end scene, Bo-Katan was talking about the Sundari, which is the capital of Mandalore. I am excited to see that in live action and see how that looks. Last time we saw it was in the Clone Wars in the finale there.
Right,
so
right. Was that where really was it Ahsoka and Maul? Right, they were up on the rafters. Yep. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and seeing all the stained glass in the throne room and everything. I'm really excited to see that. Yeah. And I hope that they actually show like the entire city.
A lot of potential.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if because this was a setup episode, like all the way through, and I'll be interested to see what road we run down, and if they do a more episodic episode. Because those, flat out, those were all very enjoyable in the last 2 seasons as well. And I'll be interested to see what the genre is. Because this, at least in the last 2 seasons, this show did a very good job of jumping through genres and giving us different genre-ish episodes. And so I'm always a little excited to see which one they're going to do next and how well they do it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely excited for the season overall. I think the first episode really left a good taste in my mouth as like, that was a great appetizer. I can't wait for the main course.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people agree too that it you always kind of want more, but by the same token, sometimes less is more, and this, I think it was a good check on that need to have it be, like you can have a shorter episode that is good. That is really, so yeah. Well, that's it from us. So listeners, what did you think of this episode of, I had to change it, of The Mandalorian? I still had the Bad Batch. This episode of The Mandalorian. So please let us know by sending us an email if you want over at starwars@sqpn.com, or you can visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can also find StarQuest on Facebook, on Twitter, and you can also find previous episodes of this show, of The Secrets of Star Wars, over at sqpn.com/Star Wars. We'd like to take a moment, as always, to thank our Secrets of Star Wars patrons, including Frank D., Jordan B., Robert R., Joe W., and Cheryl W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all of the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Please tell all of your friends, family, just people you see on the street, to follow Secrets of Star Wars any way that you can do that, right? So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, also the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to SQPN on YouTube, get the notifications, click the bell, all that stuff. Thumbs up, give us every review that you can. So we'd appreciate it. It helps get the word out about everything we're doing at SQPN, and it's just something that really is good to do. So if you love this show, to share it. So last but not least, sqpn.com/merch. has all of our great merch stuff over there. I've talked about it before. There's magnets, phone cases, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. We need to get the t-shirt. I don't know if we can legally do this, but it's going to be out there, right? With the Grogu squeezing the little Anzellan bad baby, you know. So we'll see what we can do. So we'll be back next week to unpack Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, title unknown as of now. So mark your calendars, because you're not going to want to miss that. So until then, Josh Beeghley, thanks so much for joining me on the Secrets of Star Wars.
I'm always happy to join.
And Patrick Mason, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Great to be on again.
And Father Geoff Horton, thank you so much as well.
Good to be here.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Middle-earth. Find it wherever you can find podcasts or at sqpn.com/Middle-earth.